Hey everyone, we are here with Brian Linton. Super excited to talk to Brian about a whole host of things. Small world, got a lot of overlap between my background and Brian's, dating back years here, so we'll dig into all that. Brian, why don't you jump in and tell everybody who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me. My name is Brian, and my background is not in hospitality, actually. So I started my career about 20 plus years ago as an undergrad in college in the apparel world. So I started in resort jewelry. So think, choker necklaces back 20 plus years ago when, guys were wearing like puka bead necklaces and that was cool. Or shell earrings, all this coastal stuff that I was selling up and down the East Coast. I would drive as a college freshman and sophomore down the coast of the East Coast. I'd go down to Key West and I'd work my way back up, living in a 1996 Ford Taurus, and would just basically sell to stores. I was always in the sort of B2B side of the world, and I would just go store to store to store to store and spend weeks on the road trying to get my product into these retail stores. And so as a 19, 20-year old, I found a lot of success that way, just going in person. And what that taught me, though, was that that wasn't really the way to build the brand that I wanted to do. So I sort of retrenched. And in 2010, I started a brand of apparel called United by Blue. It's an outdoor lifestyle brand that, you know, for a moment was pretty successful. There was a pretty big ramp up over the first 5, 6 years where it became a $20 million annual business, upwards of 100 people working for it across the warehouses, stores, which Matt, you know about one of our stores that we had in Asbury Park, New Jersey. We had our HQ in Philadelphia. We had a couple stores there, one on University of Pennsylvania's campus, one in Old City, which I still
Love it.
have businesses in. And that was the career path. It was to be a fashion apparel entrepreneur and grow a basically the next Patagonia, if you will, over the next
Nice.
phase of my career. COVID hit, and I ended up having a lot of challenges with the industry at the time. So not only did we get a lot of order cancellations, we were so heavily B2B versus like the B2C and the D2C type of the direct to consumer movement
Yeah,
at the time really did well during COVID, right? That first portion of COVID was actually a boom for e-commerce, but it was actually not a boom for physical retail. And so
sure.
the physical retail side was really hurt. We did have a great ramp up in the website. We had a $10 million e-commerce business that year, but ultimately that sort of cascaded into a lot of challenges for United by Blue. And at the same time, we wanted to get out of Philadelphia, so we left the city and ended up buying a rundown motel in the mountains of Pennsylvania in the Poconos. And that was like, truly rundown, Schitt's Creek style motel, like where maybe actually not even that's too nice. It was a lot worse than that, and so it was a full gut. And we had 2 kids at the time. Now we have 3. We moved there and moved into the owner's unit. Left our really nice house in Philadelphia, four bedroom, 4.5 bath, like
Wow.
3,600 square feet house in Philadelphia, and moved into like the 800 square foot owner's unit of this rundown motel, and totally transformed our life. And at the same time, United by Blue was having challenges. We ended up selling that, moving out of that the following year. But in the meantime, we found ourselves smack dab in the hospitality business, thinking that it was just going to be really just an interim in our sort of entrepreneurial careers. I thought I was going to go and start another clothing business. That was all I knew, right? But it turns out that a lot of the lessons that I learned from building a brand, building a nationally recognized brand in the apparel industry, which is still around, although it's not what it was, did teach me a lot about building brand in hospitality, processes, systems, customer service, technology. All of those things were applicable, and it took some time to realize, but it started to look at the business of that hotel that we rebranded as the Rex Hotel. After the first year or two, I was like, man, wait a second. This is a better business model. This is the business that I want to be
Nice.
in. I don't want to sell t-shirts anymore. I want to sell, you know, I want to sell experiences.
Love it. Love it. So yeah, we small world, probably 2016, we indirectly crossed paths through United by Blue. I was working in commercial real estate finance and you had a store in Asbury Park, New Jersey. We actually financed the retail strip there. So I remember digging into the business as you do in commercial
Vetting
real
it,
estate
making
finance.
sure that it made
Exactly.
sense
Yeah.
for the the place.
Yeah. Kind of getting a profile for who the tenant is. Thought it was a super cool business at the time. And it's so funny, we've connected via DMs and chat and stuff, but this is our first time we've spoken in person, and there's just so many parallels between kind of our paths in this business. You purchased the Rex Hotel in 2021, right? And
Purchased in 2020, reopened it in 2021.
okay. So yes, I took over a rundown campground that I like the Schitt's Creek analogy. I use the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as an analogy
That's a good one
because
too.
it was a beautiful piece of property, but it was scary in a lot of ways of
Yep.
rundown trailers, rundown campers,
Oh yeah,
broken down equipment.
I have one of those too, or had one of those.
Right, exactly. And so you've been sharing your story for a while now on YouTube. You have an awesome YouTube channel. So anybody who wants to get a deeper dive into Brian's story, definitely check out the YouTube channel. Is it under Ferncrest now, or what's?
No, it's so my social handle is Finding Promised Land, and
Oh
so
yes,
Finding Promised
Yeah.
Land, both on Instagram, which is actually what we really predominantly started with, and then YouTube has been we documented it, but even more so now, I'm really big believer in long form content, just because especially with hospitality, the richness of story and the richness of like telling these backstories of how these properties are developed and like the franchises that we're talking about now. YouTube is just a great format for that. Yeah.
Right. Love it. So I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel. Recommend it to everybody who's interested in outdoor hospitality or glamping. Lots of really awesome, inspirational, but also actionable, kind of golden nuggets in there to take advantage of. So you no longer in Philadelphia, or are you back in Philadelphia?
I bounce around. I mean,
Nice.
we have a place in Philly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you are involved in some other hospitality concepts as well, right?
Yeah. So the Rex was the first of now a couple or two more. So we have at the same time almost we bought like a year and a half after opening the Rex. So in 2022, at the end of 2022, we bought a rundown campground just down the road from the Rex Hotel. And it was sort of this period of time where, things were fully up and running. The Rex was doing great. And we were no longer living there at the Rex. And so it was time for the next project. At the same time, though, another opportunity came on my plate, which was a boutique hotel in the city of Philadelphia that was run down and burned out. Actually, had a fire in it, so it sort of fit the profile of what I was looking for, and had a restaurant and bar on the first floor. And so I separately from the outdoor hospitality business, which is me and my wife Joanna Linton Hospitality, which is managing our outdoor hospitality portfolio. Me and my buddy from United by Blue as well, Mike, we purchased Society Hill Hotel. And so at the same time, almost in conjunction with one another, we got the rundown campground fully outfitted, cleaned up, all those old trailers that you mentioned, all the old, layers and layers of years, 50, 60 years of garbage, essentially, still poking its head up every once in a while. Stuff is hard to get away, hard to get rid of when it just like, it's like layers. It's like architecture. It's just, it's layers and layers. So the campground was relaunched as a glamping business, a glampground called Ferncrest. And Ferncrest is really a sort of a mid-market, family-focused, health and wellness-oriented glamping concept that has done exceptionally well. So we launched that and used a lot of our social following and our marketing experience, which is a big back to that experience with United by Blue, really marketing and storytelling and social media. Throughout that process of growing Ferncrest, we amassed like 600, 700,000 followers through Instagram and Facebook on Finding Promised Land. And that was a big reason why that sort of came out of the gates really strong. And then separately, Society Hill, or the hotel in Philadelphia, which is called Society Hill Hotel, opened a few months after Ferncrest.
Nice. Was it always called Society Hill
Yeah,
Hotel?
that's the historical name. It's actually
Okay.
it's the building was built in 1832, and it's had many different purposes. It was actually a Civil War recruiting station at one point. It was a oyster cellar where they would store
Wow.
oysters in the basement with ice because no refrigeration, and they would serve them on the first floor. It was a printing press. It was a bank, and then it was a couple different hospitality, sort of like what do they call it? Flop houses. They were like basically for sailors coming off the boats, right
Like
near.
single room occupancy type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then Society Hill Hotel, the brand, was the most recent iteration of that, dating back to 30, 40 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I'm familiar with. I used to live in Philadelphia. I'm familiar with that location.
it was Society Hill Hotel when you were living in Philadelphia.
Okay. So is it different? There's a place nearby
the
that burnt
bottom floor.
down.
No, yes. That block unfortunately had a lot of fires recently.
Right.
The first floor though that you would know, it was called Monkey Bar.
Okay. Yes. I was gonna say yes.
It
Yeah,
wasn't.
okay.
So the hotel was still Society Hotel. The first floor was called Monkey Bar.
Right. So yeah, I've been in there.
Yeah.
In that
Sort of
bar
a
there.
dive bar, like
Yep.
old city. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, great city.
It's a good city. Yeah.
Great city. Cool. So Ferncrest. Tell us more about Ferncrest. This is would you describe it as a franchise, glamping franchise concept?
Yeah, it's a glamping franchise concept. I mean, really at the end of the day, building these 3 projects all within a short period of time allowed me to really analyze them as like, okay, what is the model for us to really put our next phase of our careers into, our real, our heart and soul and our financials into the growth. And, for a while it was like, well, let's just buy more. Let's just do more. And as you know, it's just like you get to a point where you're like, man, just owning more is not always the right move. Sometimes it is, like it's
Sure.
not to say that you shouldn't. If another rundown campground that seems perfect comes across either of our plates, we'll probably take a real hard look at it and be like, huh, yeah, we could do something
You're
with this, right? hard to pass on those.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, what I learned and what I specifically learned from the marketing side and this fairly large social media following that we amassed for the backstory of what we're doing, that was what opened my eyes. I don't think I would have really thought this way unless we had, we're getting like a couple million views on social media, specifically Instagram, Facebook. YouTube is far less views, but like
Yeah.
a month. And so we're getting a ton of eyeballs, and a lot of those eyeballs are reaching out and they're asking, where do you get your equipment? How do I do this myself? How do you buy the land? Like what technology are you using? All of these questions, right? And so what that then led to was these conversations with people about the equipment first and foremost, which we come from branding and production. So we, again, background in apparel, producing millions and millions of units of clothing over our career. Led us originally, even when we opened Ferncrest, the original iteration of it, we sourced and branded all of our own equipment. So we made iterations to existing equipment. We rebranded it, our own stuff, and so we never once didn't really control the supply chain of what we were doing for the glamping business. So that was the first step. Was we started to sell other aspiring glampground operators equipment, and through social media. And it became actually a meaningful business in that first sort of phase of the growth. But then very quickly, those conversations started to lead to, wait, but what if I just want to work with you like deeper, like not just do the equipment, but actually do the brand? And so then I started to, we dove really deep into what is franchising and how does it work? And, just like anything entrepreneurial, like you sort of like get obsessed for a little bit and hire lawyers, hire consultants, and spent far too much money on that process, figuring out turns out franchising is a very legally, you have to be, there's a lot of compliance with franchising. It's not just like, hey, use my brand and pay me a royalty. There's, state by state registration requirements, and there's a lot that goes into it. There's the franchise disclosure document. So we invested a lot of time and money into that process. And just late last year, we launched the franchise system. So Ferncrest Franchising is a separate company, and Ferncrest Franchising is now developing in various stages of development with many different franchisees across the country. We opened our first one in Oklahoma, so Ferncrest Flint Creek,
Yeah.
which is our Oklahoma property. It's a great franchise ownership there, and we have
Amazing.
many others in development.
Can you
So we
give a
have one coming
range or
up.
a
So
number
actually,
there?
YouTube is posting one about one's coming up in Maine, Acadia National, near Acadia
Ooh,
National. It's going to be really
like
cool.
my favorite place on earth.
Yeah, it's amazing. We have probably about five or six others in various different states that are in the early stages of development. So our goal is by the end of this year, there should be. So we have two now. We'll have at least five, if not 10, between 5 and 10 open by the end of this year. And then this year is really, last year was proof of concept. This year is, so proof of concept was like get the ducks in a row, open that first one, use that first one as a true like learn for what we need to do. This is like more of a build the base. So we're really
Yeah.
looking at like making sure that we can have a handful of really high quality operators that we can really partner deeply with and launch successfully. And then next year will be scale. So my goal with Ferncrest is, to be the leading mid-market glamping concept. And I use the mid-market almost sounds like a dirty word, but what I mean by that is there's plenty of like higher end, landscape
Yeah.
resorts, like higher end, like, $500+ ADR glamp grounds that have been developed over the last handful of years. That was sort of the first wave of glamping. And yes, then you have like the mom and pop backyard operations, probably the non-professional brands and things like that are sort of like, some are going to be successful, some are just going to like fade into the distance. And then you have like this really strong opportunity in that sort of $200 to $300 average daily rate range where, you can really create specifically a campground concept, not a landscape hotel concept, not more campground vibes than resort vibes. And that's what Ferncrest is. And I always reiterate that to people. It's not like a fancy hotel situation. I want it to feel like the campground experience that you had as a kid, but with nice beds and nice amenities and things like that. So
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's, I got into the campground business with like a total wilderness property where there's bears and bald eagles and beavers and, it's really for like hardcore outdoorsmen and outdoors women. And I get jaded because, I've worked in different areas of the industry now, including like brokerage and toured hundreds of campgrounds. And I go to see one that's like, an hour outside a major city and it's just a parking lot for RVs. And yeah, you can pitch your tent, but you can also see 50 RVs
right
as you're pitching your tent. And I'm like, no, like the campground that I started with, our best performing sites are hike in primitive tent sites.
Wow.
That, we give them wheelbarrows to wheel their stuff and they take 5 trips.
Yeah.
300 yards into the woods from where they park. And, we had somebody return 8 times in one season.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Like they're paying us like 8 times is probably $2,000, $2,500.
Yeah. What do you get for a walk-in primitive site per night?
So when I bought that campground, I honestly didn't. Still, 3.5 years later, I haven't moved the seller's rates because I thought they were very strong, kind of high.
Interesting.
We have every site's unique. Every site's a different shape and feel. On average, probably 65 for a primitive tent site a night, 75 for the bigger ones.
That's
but we have
awesome.
all these add-ons. So like regularly it's an extra vehicle, an extra adult, a pet, whatever. Like it can be $120 a night for.
So good.
And I didn't. I just took the pricing structure that the seller had.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are kind of high. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable pushing these, so I didn't. We're working on our occupancy. So, some of our tent sites are 40% occupied. Some of them are 5% occupied. So we're trying to turn the dials and pull the levers to which you probably have a lot of good ideas on how to do that. We're messing with dynamic pricing and getting more creative with the marketing. I mean, it was a concept that you're probably very familiar with too, is like, I mean, we operated all through the cleanup and the development. So like we really held off on marketing for the first 3 years because we were nervous about getting too many eyes on the property and then getting 1-star reviews.
Mm.
So we just kind of kept it quiet and kept the return customers that knew what it was. And it was great because those people saw all the improvements and cleaning up and junking out, and they loved it. They loved to see what was coming. And now we've launched some higher end cabins and renovated camper stays and stuff that you're familiar with. And it's starting to take off, but it's been a marathon with that property, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is all super exciting, cool stuff. Tell me about I know from watching your YouTube channel, you've had some different kind of versions and shifting philosophy on the lodging unit
Yep.
types.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us kind of your journey and how you arrived at where you're at with your current unit types and mix.
Sure. So we started Ferncrest with 3 different tents. We had the classic bell tent, as many people in glamping look at, and they're like, that's the most economical thing. I'm going to try that. Then we had sort of our wall tents, our safari tents, which we call our crest tents after Ferncrest. And then we have our geodesic dome tents. And so after the first season, I immediately nixed the bell tents. The value proposition just wasn't there when you compare it to, say, the domes and the safari tents. In fact, like, it would probably be better to just have primitive than have a bell tent, in my opinion. When you have the comparison to the others, like if you just have bell tents maybe in primitive, then okay, the bell tent stands out. But when you're actually creating the bell tent as that base unit or the lower end unit, it feels like the lower end unit, and it feels like something that just doesn't have the appeal that the other tents have. And in many ways, I thought it was going to be the people that are trading up from traditional camping to go to like a bell. But like, again, if people are not, if they're traditional campers, they're going to just go traditional camping. And if they're going to go then glamping, they're going to trade up all the way to like the bigger experience, the dome tent, with the nicer furnishings and air conditioning and all of that. So I think that sort of realization that more was actually not more in that case, more was actually just diluting the experience. And then last season we were operating our geodesic domes and then our crest tents. We had 21 sites last year. The campground that we bought, by the way, was like 67 sites. We reduced it to 21. Now we're scaling up to 25. So we're adding 4 more geodesic domes this year. But essentially, nice. And the reason why we still have the safari wall tents is not because they're outperforming, but frankly, they are good enough right now where they do provide another option for probably the more traditionally minded camper that doesn't want to go with the modern experience of a geodesic dome. But ultimately, the future of the crest tent will be eliminated. We're not putting them in the franchise models. So that tent will be eliminated from future expansion. And the thing that's replacing it is a camping cabin, which is a hard-walled structure, no bathroom. So again, back to like, this is camping. Like, this is not landscape resort hotel. This is camping. So these cabin structures, which we're designing and we're producing prefab, are going to be hot, not cold or wet. So they're going to have electricity, but nothing else. But they're going to be really nice. They're going to have, the nice windows looking out into the forest, just like the domes do, and really nicely furnished and appointed. So it'll be geodesic domes and these camp cabins as sort of the ongoing or the next phase of Ferncrest's growth.
Nice. Okay. And so through the franchise, is that those are going to be the only options?
Yeah, for the time. And what I always like to tell people, because people always ask about, okay, well, like what happens if domes are out of favor? What happens if we need to chase another structure? And I'm a big believer from a brand standpoint of having focus and not having so many things. And that was the fallacy of even having those 3 tent options to start. And I think that, there are plenty of models out there. And I think the glamping industry as a whole sort of always talks about having cool experiences and all these different, have tree houses, have covered wagons, have teepees, have this and that and the other, and like mashing it all together to make like something for everybody. I'm more of a believer in Ferncrest needs to have focus. And that's the importance of a franchise, is it gives that focus and makes it so that it doesn't have too many options. But as far as like, what is the future? I always tell people that I'm talking to about the franchise that Ferncrest is not defined by its lodging unit. Ferncrest is defined by the experience. And as we see things evolve over time, we will be at the forefront of deciding where those opportunities are. Just like I think dome tents and I think camp cabins are a good mix right now. They have high ADRs. They have
Hmm.
relatively, the cost to value ratio is high. You can get a really good return on them. But in 5 years, what does that look like? Could be something entirely different. But the good thing about the franchise is that, we'll be plugged in enough to things where hopefully we can see trends developing and start to evolve the concepts in an appropriate way.
Amazing. I love that. I think that's a really great philosophy. When I think about my own properties, I think about it's really about the outdoors, right? Like
Right.
I think a lot of people put a ton of money and thought into interior design and luxury interiors, and I think it works. Maybe that's just a certain
Mhm.
type of clientele, but I just want a comfortable bed that's dry and warm if it's cold and rainy outside, and then I want an awesome exterior campsite.
Yeah. I think you and I share a similar philosophy. I always say, make nature the star. Like
Yep.
the amazing thing about glamping and outdoor hospitality is that we are so blessed to have nature be the main attraction that we actually, if we can just embrace that and figure out, a property, and it doesn't have to be the perfect property with a mountain vista or lakeside retreat. Like people that are coming to these experiences oftentimes just don't have simple access to nature. And so
Yeah.
giving them simple access and making nature the star, and it doesn't mean they need 10 acres for themselves. In fact, that's the campground experience that I'm okay with, is like having some concentration, but still nature is the star. And you don't need to overdevelop nature, and nature is cheap and easy to just make it the star.
Right.
That bear that comes through the campground might freak some people out, but 90% of those people are going to remember that. And I didn't have to pay that bear to be there.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's funny. I think I've learned just having a pretty extensive kind of cross section of the industry and different roles I've worked in. It's all degrees and it's a spectrum. Like I was kind of poo pooing the campgrounds that are, you know, more like suburban and, not wilderness. But that's right. Like whoever's going to that campground might live in like a three-decker multifamily property and
yeah, that
not
might be
really have
nature
a
to them.
backyard, and that's their backyard. That's their outdoor kind of escape that somebody who lives in a more suburban or rural area just has at their house. So it's all degrees. Everybody has their own experience that they're looking for. But yeah, I think you're onto something great. I love it. Excited to stay tuned and see all the updates. I'm sure there's probably some people listening who want to get in touch with you about Ferncrest, about whatever. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Brian?
I'd say that the two best ways are going to be Instagram, Finding Promised Land, DM me. So at Finding Promised Land, Promised Land, Promeised, promise, like the, and then,
Sure.
uh, and then LinkedIn, Brian Linton on LinkedIn is a great way. And then if you want to learn more about the franchise, we have a separate franchise website, ferncrestfranchise.com.
Love it. Love it. Do you have any like I don't know, don't give away any secret sauce or anything, but you got any markets or areas of the country that you're excited about or looking at closely?
Yeah, I'm really excited about like the Great Lakes regions. I think Michigan, Minnesota, like Illinois. All of those markets are really interesting to me. I'm getting a lot of interest, a lot of conversations. I mean, we have. I kid you not. Like, I just recently hired somebody because the call volume is so high. There's so many people that want to get into this industry. I think it's going to be a matter
Wow.
of like, for us and for the industry as a whole, it's really going to be quality over quantity. I think that, figuring out where are the best markets and the best operators, um, because I think one of the things that a lot of people get scared about when they think about all the buzz that's happening in glamping is whether or not it's going to be saturated. And I think there is a saturation point that will happen, but it's not going to
Sure.
be anytime soon. And I also think it's not going to be an issue for those that do it well. And so that's a tangent to the question, but I'm really excited about the Great Lakes region. But every market is really exciting to me right now as well. It's a beautiful country. The U.S. has every single state in this country has natural beauty. Everyone.
Well said. Well said. Anything that we didn't cover that you'd want the listeners to hear or be aware of?
No, I think that that idea of like quality, competition is best done by the winners are going to win, the losers are going to lose. Don't be a loser, be a winner. And that's part of why I have the franchise system, so that people can join a winning team and not have to take the risk on their own.
Love that. Love that. Cool. Well, excited to keep in touch, Brian. Appreciate your time today, and I'm rooting for you.
Thanks, Matt. Likewise.
All right. Talk soon. Thanks.